Hello, everyone from all around the world. If you're watching from Canada, good morning. If you're watching from Egypt or any similar time zones, good afternoon. I'm Karim Sheta, founder of Food for Thought, and welcome to our second interview of our series, Positive Psychology in the Business World. Today, we'll be discussing a very important topic, and that is leadership coaching. But before we dive into it and its details, let's get to know our guest a bit more. And we have today Lisa Sansom. Lisa,
Yeah, really great to meet you. Thank you so much. I didn't realize it was only your second interview. I feel very honored.
thank you so much. We started this series because we had been doing it for a very long time, but we wanted to apply it on a more business level, not just personal level. So we definitely have a lot of experts such as yourself with us in this series. They've definitely, I'm sure the viewers have read your bio post. But in case someone hasn't read it yet, would you kindly introduce yourself to them?
Sure. So, my name is Lisa Sansom. I am in Canada right now as we're talking, and there's a little bit of snow outside. So, for people who are listening from the Middle East, summer is a much nicer time to come and visit Canada if you don't like the cold. So I have
Definitely.
been in the field of organizational development and change management and leadership development for just over 20 years. I did my MBA at the University of Toronto, Rotman School of Management, and graduated in the year 2000, and then moved into the field of organizational development. And that's when I met my first leadership coach. I was working for a company in Ottawa, Ontario, which is the capital of Canada, and I met my first leadership coach there, and I asked him what leadership coaching was. And he explained to me what it was. And I thought this was fascinating. So I sent myself to get my coaching certification. And I got that in about 2007. And then just a couple of years after that, I applied to the Master of Applied Positive Psychology program at the University of Pennsylvania and graduated from there in 2010. And so since that time, for about the past 12 years, I really have been merging these fields of organizational development, change management, leadership coaching, and positive psychology. And that's a lot of what I've been doing in that time. And I know we're going to talk more about those details, but it really is a fun intersection to be at. I've been an internal coaching consultant, I've been an external coaching consultant, and it's just, I get to work with amazing people.
That's really impressive. And as people will also, I'm sure they'll be intrigued to read your bio, know many more of your achievements. So thank you for being brief in your introduction. Um, so I understand that you also have, because this page is psychology, so I have to ask. I know that you have a master's degree in positive psychology, and you actually pursued that degree in a time when it wasn't even that popular as it is. So I have to ask you, what is the role of positive psychology in the business world? I mean, you've been in it so many years. Do you feel it's growing? Do you feel it's stagnant? What's your opinion on that?
It has definitely been growing in the past 12 years. So you're right. When I applied to the program, and I applied to the program back in 2008 or so, um, no one really knew what this was. It was a fairly new field that not a lot of people had heard of. Martin Seligman, who's sort of the modern day founder, I would say, of positive psychology, he had really only started the Masters of Applied Positive Psychology a couple of years earlier. I heard about it through a coaching newsletter. And what appealed
Mhm.
to me about the program is that it provided a scientific basis and foundation for coaching. So a lot of the
Mhm.
things that I had been doing in my role worked, but I didn't know why they worked. My coach training had told me to trust my intuition, and it had given me a few tools and techniques, but not why these models would work. Whereas positive psychology provided me with the psychological foundation and the research behind why some of these things worked. So that was really good for me in my practice. And in the business world, like you were asking about, it gave them the confidence that these things were more likely to work. You know, all the interventions, all the training, all the coaching, it was more likely to work because it came from an empirical foundation. And it gave them a lot more confidence in the techniques as well. So, one of the things that I was doing over the past dozen years is I go into organizations and I teach them positive psychology. So, I'm teaching managers how to apply positive psychology in their teams, in their workplaces, and so on. I'm teaching people how to lead change with positive psychology in mind. I'm teaching managers coaching skills with positive psychology research as the foundation of it. Lots of place for this in the business world. Lots more confidence when there is a scientific basis. And then you create these upward spirals because if people have confidence in the interventions, they're more likely to try them. And if they're more likely to try them, they're more likely to see positive impact. The interest is definitely growing. I'm sure you've seen this yourself. Way more books out there now on positive psychology than there were 10 years ago. Way more TED Talks, way more online courses, way more articles. The research has exploded. I mean, it's quite phenomenal what has come out of Martin Seligman's original APA presidency in 97, 98 till now, here we are 25 some years later. I used to present on positive psychology and I'd be in front of a room of a couple of hundred people. And I'd say, how many people have heard of positive psychology? And no hands would go up. And now I ask who's heard about it. And most people have heard something of positive psychology. They've seen a TED talk, they've read a book, they've heard the phrase, just way more BuzzFeed articles about positive psychology. It's out there in the mass media. So it has grown, it's continuing to grow, it's continuing to evolve. There's now waves of positive psychology. Some people refer to positive psychology 2.0, some people refer to positive psychology 3.0. I mean, at some point, you can imagine we'll get to the limits of what's out there and the field will stabilize a little bit, but it is still growing like gangbusters.
Wow. I like as we discussed like the other day, here in Egypt, like it's not that popular. So I'm very fascinated. I feel that we'll follow the same trend. Like as you said, it will be a bit non-existent at the beginning, but then gradually it will definitely spread. So I hope we'll reach that same level. And I think the amazing thing about positive psychology is that I don't think it will ever end. I don't think it's a science that will have a limit or a deadline. I think it will keep going for years to come.
There are
Um,
always questions. There are always questions. And when you read the research articles, one of the things I really love about positive psychology researchers is number one, they're very generous. When I have reached out to positive psychology researchers and practitioners, they get back to me and they are very generous in terms of sharing their knowledge and their resources. I mean, even some very big names have gotten back to me and sent me articles about things. Amazing. And the second thing that I really like about positive psychology researchers is that they're very prudent in the application of the research and they're very forward thinking. And they're always thinking about where else do we go with this research? What else can we learn here? And they're just very curious people, constantly inquiring. So I think you're right. I mean, this is not a field that's going to go away, it's not going to languish. There are lots of questions out there and people are hungry for the questions. They're really interested in how do I live a life of well being? What is it that makes life worth living? And how do I use this to help me get through the really difficult times? Because there are difficult times in everybody's life. That's just part of what life is. And what is it
exactly.
that positive psychology can tell us that's going to help me get through those? Honoring all the emotions, honoring all the experiences. This isn't about, glossing over the bad things. It's not about being happy all the time. That's not healthy either. But there are things that positive psychology can teach us as human beings about how we get through life, a little bit happier, maybe with a little bit more meaning and purpose and thinking about other people and connected to our communities.
Most definitely. I could have said it better myself. So thank you so much for summing that up beautifully. You were saying that, like, before we talked about positive psychology, you were talking about how you started integrating it into your line of work and leadership coaching. And we'll talk about that further. But in case someone isn't familiar with the field of leadership
Mhm.
coaching, could you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah. So, what I do as a leadership coach is I work with leaders and aspiring leaders in organizations. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I have a very broad definition of leadership. Some people will look at an organizational chart and they'll look at the boxes and they'll say, okay, leaders are people in these boxes. And
Mm-hmm.
I really believe anybody can be a leader. A leader just means that you want to initiate something, that you want to have other people follow you in some sort of initiative, that you have something that's worth saying, really. Like you want to lead a thought process or you want to lead an idea. So anybody can be a leader. And
Mm-hmm.
coaching is a one on one, really thoughtful process where you partner with somebody, and as the coach, I bring in expertise in listening, in asking questions, in holding space, in really asking those thought provoking questions that allow my client to go deeper and to uncover what is it that's working well here? What is it that's motivating them? What is it that's really important? But always with the future in mind. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I'll say to people, "Oh, I'm a leadership coach." And they'll say, "Oh, so, like a therapist." It's like, well, what therapy and counselors do, which is also very important, they tend to look backwards. They tend to unearth root causes more. Whereas what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, whatever brought you to this place is what brought you to this place. That's fine. You are who you are. You've got all your life's experience and all of your mindsets and perspectives. And here you are, and you have somewhere that you want to go in the future. You have goals,
Mm-hmm.
you have dreams, you have aspirations. You want to be more confident. You want to lead change. You want to be able to resolve dynamics on your team. You want to have a better impact on the people around you because leaders have this amazing ripple effect on potentially hundreds of people. So then what I do is I'm asking questions in a very thought provoking way to help you get from where you are now to where you want to be in the future. Little
Mm-hmm.
steps by little steps, running experiments, trying new things, and then just checking in. How did that go? How's that working for you? What have you learned about yourself? What do you want to do next time? So, generally,
Mm-hmm.
that's what coaching is, and that's some of how I approach it. And positive psychology can help because it gives me some models that I can use to inform my questions. And sometimes my clients are really interested in it. So I might share some articles or some little teach pieces with them as well. And then they'll go out and use them with their teams or even with their families because we end up talking about the entire environment around a leader, which includes their personal lives as well. So that's a little
Mm-hmm.
bit about what coaching is. I belong to the International Coach Federation. And so, if any of your listeners are interested in learning more, I would encourage people to go look for the International Coach Federation. They have some really good definitions about what coaching is and different kinds of coaching as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. The ICF is really famous, and a lot of really good coaches, such as yourself, obviously, belong to the ICF. I really like how you defined leadership separately and how it combines with coaching, and the difference between it and what counselors do, because people think that coaching is a sort of therapy or psychiatry. It's not that at all. So I do know. Okay, so leadership coaching is your main focus.
Yeah.
What are some like branches that go out of leadership coaching? So what can you coach that's related to leadership? Because leadership might be a broad term. Is there something in particular that you might focus on, depending on your client?
Yeah. So another important element of coaching is that the client brings the agenda. So, Kareem, if you were my client, I would be asking you at the beginning of every session, what do you want to talk about? And you
Mm-hmm.
get to decide how you want to use our time together. So, some
Mm-hmm.
of the agendas that my clients might bring to me could include presentations. Like, how do I present this thing? How do I have impact? It could be about influence. How do I influence other people who are making decisions? So that's often referred to as managing up, for example, but it's also influence of peers and kind of across their network. It might be about career changes. I quite often work with people who are feeling stuck and they know they want to do something different. They know they're ready for another challenge, but they don't know what that is yet. I do not do career coaching and I do not do job coaching. There are other people who know the ins and outs of LinkedIn profiles and cover letters and CVs and resumes. But when you don't know where to start, I can work with my clients to help them figure out what do they enjoy in their career now? What are the new challenges they might be looking for? Who can they go talk to learn more about that? So I'll work with them at a high conceptual level, and then they can go work with a specialist on the details. I might also work with leaders on how to lead high performing teams. I've done a lot of team coaching in my time, and that's a very different dynamic because you might have five, six, seven people on a team. And what I need to do is get them aligned around the voice of the team. How do you do what is best for the team? And sometimes that means putting your own selfish interests to one side because you need to prioritize the team. And what is the role of the leader in that? So you're quite right. There are a lot of things that can come out of leadership coaching. A big one, as you can imagine, is the whole balance. Like, just how do I manage my time and how do I manage my energy? Because leaders are often very busy people, often
Mhm.
with families as well. And
Mhm.
they do need to figure out where are their boundaries? What does their balance look like? And how does
Mhm.
that change from day to day? You know, as children grow up and as your parents get older, your balance is going to look very different.
Mhm.
So, lots and lots of topics come out of leadership coaching. It is much more than just how do I lead and what is my leadership philosophy. The leaders I
Mhm.
work with are very self aware and they know where it is that they want to grow and improve. And I also work with them on what are your strengths? Where is it that you're
Mhm.
already doing well and how do you get the most out of that? So, lots of fun places to talk about.
Obviously, yeah. Thank you for elaborating that. I just wanted to prove to people that like there aren't like a limited amount of topics to coach on. There are so many, like it'll
Mhm.
take hours and hours for us to discuss each one. Okay, so that's perfect. So I think people are really pumped up to know more about leadership coaching. So this will be a great transition to the first main question. Someone might be watching right now and thinking that, okay, that sounds very interesting. I want to start out to be a leadership coach. Obviously, it's not a 1 or 2 day journey, it's something that will take months. But what's the first step? How can I know that, okay, I'm qualified to take this? And even if I'm not qualified, what can I do to help myself become a leadership coach?
Yeah, well, the first thing is definitely having an interest in it. I will say that you don't need to be a leader in an organization. If you have some leadership experience doing anything at all, volunteer work, school clubs when you were younger, you know, anything that you've been a leader in, that can help you have some empathy and understanding for your client situations. I
Mm-hmm.
would say the first thing is go and talk to other leadership coaches. Find out what
Mm-hmm.
it is that they enjoy, how they work. See if you still like it after you've spoken to a bunch of leadership coaches,
Yeah.
because you might find out that there are some elements of this that you're not interested in. And you might want to do some niche coaching instead, something that's not leadership. You might want to coach, for example, entrepreneurs, or you might want to coach business building, or you might want to do life coaching where people come to you and talk more about their personal things. So, talk to other coaches about their niches and find out what they do. And then I would say it's really important to get a certification.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I started coaching, and again, we're going back like 15 some years, there were a lot of coaches out there who were not certified. And
Mm-hmm.
coaching is a non regulated profession. So, we were talking earlier about therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists. Like, they belong to a regulated school, and coaching does not, which means that anybody can call themselves a leadership coach with no training whatsoever. And you can
Mm-hmm.
imagine that's a very different quality of coaching. So, when
Mm-hmm.
you get a certification from a reliable certified school, you're already setting yourself out from the pack. You're already
Mm-hmm.
saying that you are taking this more seriously and that you believe in your education as a coach, that you believe in valid and verifiable techniques, that you believe in lifelong learning as well, because I keep learning as a coach. Like, I am never, ever, ever done. So you
Mm-hmm.
want to be looking for that certification. And then the next thing is you want to practice. And your school that you go to for coaching should be making you pick up clients. They
Hmm.
should be providing some sort of supervision so that they monitor recordings that you're doing with clients. All of this is done with permission and keeping confidentiality. Your school should have a process for managing that. But they want
Hmm.
to be doing some sort of quality control so that you are well equipped to get your certification. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, I mean, there's a lot to any sort of coaching, even though people can just say, I'm a coach and set up a website, anybody can do that. I would say there's a lot of value in making sure that you are getting a proper certification and really educating yourself along the way.
Thank you for saying that, because a few days ago I was having a debate with one of my colleagues. He's also a coach, and I told him I want to start this new branch of coaching, but I need a certification. He's like, "Oh, but there are so many, as you said, there are so many people without certifications now, and people still enroll into their sessions and everything." So now I can prove him wrong, and because I don't think I don't think certification is just for, it's like a plaque that you hang on the wall. I think it gives you a base. It gives you something to work on. It gives you the essentials. It might not give you everything, but at least you have something to go on. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, I'd like to share the example of somebody that I'm working with right now. Some of
Please.
your listeners might be familiar with Scott Barry Kaufman. Scott Barry
Hmm.
Kaufman is the author of a number of books, the author of a number of articles. He's written for Scientific American. He has written predominantly around intelligence. He has transformed the way that people view intelligence. And he wrote a new book on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and he's completely transformed that model. He went back and he read Maslow's original journals. He
Wow.
talked to people who knew Maslow. And that whole Maslow pyramid that people think of, like, it doesn't exist, throw that out. Scott Barry Kaufman has created a beautiful sailboat metaphor, and it makes the case that Maslow was going to add another piece, which was called self transcendence. And so he
Mhm.
calls this model, his book is called Transcend. Anyways, one of the things that Scott is going to be doing, and he's already announced this, so I don't think I'm sharing anything confidential, is he's going to be creating a coaching program that is based on self actualization and transcendence. Well,
Wow.
Scott's brilliant. Scott's amazing. And he knows so much. And he's got a PhD, but he's not a coach. He doesn't know coaching. So he has chosen, I mean, a person of this magnitude has chosen to go and take a coaching program so that he knows about coaching so he can be a certified coach before he creates his coaching program for other people based on the model that he's created. Like, that's how important it is to go and get a coaching certification. You've got some of the world's best brains who want to turn their models into coaching programs, and they say, I need to be a coach first. So, yeah, absolutely. It's really important to get that training.
That's really inspiring story, and I'm definitely gonna read his book when it comes out. And I think like people shouldn't take excuses. Like before I move on to the next question, just like for my clients if they're watching, because some people come up to me say, "Oh, but I don't have time. Oh, but I finished work late at night." If you want to make time for something, you will find time to do it. Just don't make
You'll do it.
excuses, please.
You'll do it.
Yeah.
I did my MBA part time when I was a teacher, and anybody who's been a teacher, you know how busy that is, and you know how full that is. So for 3 years, I was doing part time school and teaching full time. And then I did my Master of Applied Positive Psychology when I had two little kids. They were 6 and 8
Wow.
at the time. I am now doing a doctorate program part time, and I work full time, and I have my business on the side, and my kids are teenagers. So you have to make those decisions, and it could be, genuinely speaking, that it's not the right time for you to undertake something. I mean, I've been thinking about a doctorate program for 3 years, and it was finally now the right time for me to do that. But yeah, I mean, if you really critically think about how you're using your time and what's important to you, you make certain decisions.
Definitely, definitely. That's very well put. Okay, so perfect. So we've defined leadership coaching. How can I become a leadership coach? Let's talk about the first step. That's always, I think, the riskiest or the most risky or scariest step. Um, so as you mentioned in the beginning in your bio, you worked as an external coach and, in different types of coaching. Um, so how should one start out? Obviously it's according to his or her own preference,
Mhm.
but there's freelancing, there's internal and external coaching, there's starting your own firm as you have your own firm. Um, is there a certain recommendation in mind? Are there pros and cons that come to mind from each experience? What do you think?
It is really up to the individual. So, the first leadership coach I ever met was a full time employee who worked inside an organization. His client
Mhm.
roster was the leaders of that organization. There are definitely some benefits to that. You have a full time salary, that
Yeah.
stability is really nice. You have benefits, you have a community that you are connected with, and you get to understand the functioning of that organization. So there are
Mhm.
lots of benefits to being an internal coach. I would say if you are going to be an internal coach, you need to know you're probably going to be working with much larger organizations because they are the ones who can afford to have internal coaches. They are the ones who have enough leaders that would want coaching. So
Mhm.
you're going to be working in a larger organization. And there will probably be a lot more internal processes that you will need to follow just because of how the organization wants to run things.
Mhm.
And there might be a little bit more conflict or sense of conflict because you're coaching leaders who know each other and work together. And
Mhm.
so if you're coaching A and they're on a committee with B and you're also coaching B, and A and B are talking and they say, "Oh, I'm working with Lisa as my leadership coach." "Oh, really? Me too." Now they might be worried that I'm talking about one with the other, which of course as a coach I would never do. There's rigorous confidentiality in coaching,
Of course.
but people might worry that, I know too much and that their secrets are not safe with me. There's a perception there. And
Mhm.
there are some leaders who would rather have an external coach to be able to keep that confidentiality. And it might also be harder as an internal coach because you are going to be filing reports about who has attended their sessions and what sort of progress has been made. So there might be some concerns about confidentiality. But lots of
Mhm.
benefits to being internal because you do get to see the evolution of your leaders a lot more, and you get to see the evolution of the impact that you're having on the culture by virtue
Mhm.
of the leadership coaching that you're doing. So
Mhm.
I have done internal coaching. I've also done external coaching as a contractor, as a freelancer, as you say, running my own business. Harder to find clients, of course.
Of
You
course.
have to
Of
do
course.
more marketing. They don't work with you, they're not being sent to you. So you have to be doing more marketing. Now, because of that, you can also charge more because, they're not just being sent to you. So as an internal coach per hour, you're probably getting paid less. As an external coach, you're probably charging more. But that can also make it harder to find clients because there's only certain ones who will be able to afford your rates.
Yeah.
But the benefit is you get to choose who you work with
Mhm.
because when you work inside an organization, you get told, here are your clients. I can put clients through a discovery interview, a getting to know you session, and we both have to agree that this is going to work. So
Mhm.
there's a little bit more choice. I can be a little bit more selective on that.
Uh-huh.
And the topics tend to be a little bit more wider ranging because I'm not being told by some organization, here is the vision and here are the values and here's what we need from our leaders. I can really take direction from the individual clients. But I don't have the community, right? Like I know other
Mhm.
coaches and we talk occasionally, but we're not working with the same organization. We're not working in the same leaders. So you lose a little bit of that. So you have to work a little harder to create a sense of community around you. So again, pros and cons. I mean, they both work, they both have benefits and disadvantages. I would say most coaches that I know do a variety of things. They will do coaching, of course. They'll also do some speaking, some training, some consulting. They do some group coaching. They do some individual coaching. So if you're going to be an external coach, you'll get to play a lot more in a lot of different areas. compared to being an internal coach, you might be doing a little bit less. So, yeah, it really is kind of your mileage may vary. The other piece I'll add to what you just said, Kareem, is a lot of independent coaches will also work for third party coaching providers.
Uh-huh.
So there are organizations out there that have a very large roster of coaches. They have a roster of business clients and they do the matching. So you might
Mm-hmm.
work, one of the big companies that's gotten a lot of press lately is called Better Up.
Mm-hmm.
Better Up has a roster of, I don't know, hundreds at least, maybe thousands of coaches. They're quite large. And they work with some of the top Fortune 500 companies. And
Wow.
so then, if you're an independent coach, you're going to get a lower hourly rate because Better Up sends you clients. You don't have to do the marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Better Up does all the marketing and Better Up takes all the financial risk. But you
Mm-hmm.
are working with clients across a bunch of different organizations. And so that can
Mm-hmm.
be an interesting variety for independent coaches to consider as well. But I will
Mm-hmm.
say on that, you have to have your certification. These
Uh-huh.
companies are not hiring uncertified coaches. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you have to have a certain level of experience, either professional experience in your own work area or coaching experience, because you're working with some very senior leaders. And these
Mm-hmm.
companies need to make sure that you are ready for that. But there's lots of opportunity out there. And the world of coaching has also been growing quite a bit over the past 12, 15 years or so. There are
Yeah.
many different models. And you're quite right. I think there's lots of opportunity out there. The best way for someone to make the decision is go talk to other coaches who are doing that and
Yep.
find out what they like about it. So you talk to
True.
somebody who has been, running their own coaching business for 20 years and they love it and they say, "Well, here's what I really love about it." And if you listen to that and you think, I don't really want to do
Yeah.
that, then maybe
Yeah.
external coaching isn't for you. Maybe you should go talk to some internal coaches and find out what they like about it. Talk to people who have done both. So, yeah, have those informational interviews, and that'll help you figure out the direction you might want to go in.
Thank you very much for that like full picture analysis. I'm sure it was hard to give an evaluation based on 20 plus years of experience, but in such a short time. But yeah, I think I totally agree with what you said about actually, first of all, I'm very interested in that third party independent model. I actually might consider that because I never thought about it. I only focused on the basics, so that's really interesting. And I think apart from the fact that you should just start. I mean, you don't. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, you should plan. Just start. But I think the train of thought or the path that you mentioned at the beginning, maybe not the exact one, but I think starting out with internal coaching, because sort of makes you familiar with the world of coaching and corporate firms and all that, and then maybe branch out to your own firm, freelancing and whatnot. So this was perfect. Okay, I was going to ask you what are some of the challenges that you might face, but you've mentioned quite a few, especially about marketing, dealing with clients confidentiality. That's all awesome. Instead of talking about external challenges, let's talk about internal challenges, maybe struggles. So as a leadership coach, you're working on for years, at some points you will face things that will demotivate you. Oh, this
Mm.
is too hard, maybe this isn't for me. How do you face these challenges, if you have examples, of course, and how do you face these challenges? Maybe this will be a good segue to positive psychology as well.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Every professional is going to face challenges at some time. There are a couple of things that I have certainly drawn on in my own coaching experience.
Hmm.
One is that anybody who's going through a coach certification program, you will want to work with a mentor coach. It is a
Hmm.
requirement of the ICF, but it's also just a good idea to have
Yeah.
a mentor coach who helps you through your certification, who helps you with your coaching skills, but is also there to provide perspective when you need some perspective. I
Hmm.
have done mentor coaching for a few years. I've worked with a lot of coaches who are getting their ACC, which is the first level of the ICF certification. I've worked
Yeah.
with a couple of coaches who are going for their PCC, which is the second level. And the situations that they bring to me to talk about are not just, how do I coach in this situation? It's about how do I resolve this dilemma? Or I have a client who's feeling really stuck. And so I'm feeling really stuck. I don't know what to do with them. And a mentor coach is invaluable. And I will say that most good coaches have coaches. So you've got
Mhm.
somebody who understands your professional world, you've got somebody who holds that confidential and safe space for you, and you've
Yeah.
got somebody who understands you and really can support you when you're going through difficult times. So I
True.
would say that's one thing, like having that mentor coach can be really helpful.
Hmm.
Another is just having a good support network that we all need, right? Friends and family, like find people that you can talk with, that you can share your concerns with, and also people who bring the wisdom, right? Even if they know nothing about coaching and they know nothing about your business, they can just offer a different, honest perspective and give you some encouragement. And, just kind of the basics, like making sure you're getting enough sleep, making sure that you're exercising, making sure that you are healthy, that you are eating well, that you're drinking water. Like, just the better you are physically, the easier it's going to be to adapt to any sort of mental or psychological challenges that you're having, especially sleep. I'm a big fan of sleep. Make sure you're getting good, restful sleep all the time.
Yeah.
Um, and then I would say yes to the positive psychology piece. So that's just the ongoing self awareness of recognizing that, hey, like I'm in a hard place right now. And maybe this isn't the best time for me to be making big life decisions, for example. Maybe this isn't the best time for me to be running a new marketing campaign.
Hmm.
Maybe I really do need to shut down my business for a week so that I can just recoup, so that I can just take the time that I need.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to bring some more fun into my life. Maybe I need to reconnect with some friends. All these things that we know from positive psychology work in terms of building your energy and your resources, but also just that we know as human beings and we occasionally forget. So some of the positive psychology practices can be really good for us individually as well and help through the coaching. So there's
Hmm.
a number of different resources. Everybody gets stuck. Everybody has hard times. Everybody has difficult clients. Everybody has sessions where they say, wow, I really messed that one up and wish I'd done that differently. It's all
True.
normal. It's all natural. And yeah, don't let it get you down.
I completely agree. I remember my first session in positive psychology. I was coaching someone, and my main focus was not with him. It was just like, okay, I have this knowledge. How can I connect it with what he's saying? And that's how it was throughout the entire session. And I finished the session. I had this huge headache, and I was like, okay, it must be much simpler than that because I can't be this stressed. I mean, I'm the one who's supposed to be helping him. So I completely agree. And by the way, for anyone who's a like who watches or follows Food for Thought, Lisa said so many terms that we've mentioned for resilience. She said, social support, mentorship, or role model, like so many things, a public, just a lot of things that related to positive psychology. Um, Sadly, I'll have to conclude with the final question, but you gave a very good transition now. You were talking about positive psychology on a personal level to face the
Mm.
struggles. Okay, so you mentioned also at the beginning of the session, you said sometimes, or I use the positive psychology tools in my leadership coaching. What are some of those examples?
Yeah, great question. Um, One of the things that I do in my life is I teach coaches, and I teach through Valerie Burton's CAP Institute. So if
Wow.
anybody's interested in looking that up, Valerie Burton is an amazing woman. She has published, I can't remember, a dozen some books. She's incredibly inspirational. She is a coach herself. She's also a speaker and a trainer. And
Amazing.
one of the things that she did in creating her program is she has integrated positive psychology with coaching. So, people who are interested in learning more about coaching and also learning more about positive psychology, there are a few schools like Valerie Burton's, which, obviously I enjoy because I've been working with her for a number of years. But there are
Yeah.
other ones out there as well where you can get both. So, I would encourage people, if you want to learn about both, go to a coaching school that's ICF accredited and where you can learn about both. Because then you're going to learn about some of these positive psychology frameworks and constructs like you said, Kareem, that you've got some information that helps to inform how you work with your clients.
Yeah.
So, some of my favorite positive psychology constructs, growth mindset is really big.
Ah, yeah.
And anybody who's familiar with growth mindset, you know this comes from Carol Dweck. This is
Yeah.
about how do we see ourselves as learners. And when I'm working with clients, you know, they're trying to do new things out there. I
Yeah.
want them to adopt a growth mindset as much as possible, that challenges are important because they help us grow and learn. And that when you come against an obstacle, you can persevere and you can be creative and resourceful in terms of figuring out how to get around that obstacle so you can
Hmm.
keep going towards your goal. So, growth mindset has been really helpful. Another one that I'm interested in right now, and this is partly because of the research I'm doing for my doctorate program, is active constructive responding.
Yes.
And this is based on the article, Will You Be There For Me When Things Go Right? This is Shelley
Hmm.
Gable's work, I believe.
Yeah.
And what she took a look at is partners and how did they respond to good news? Because, you know, you
Hmm.
tend to think of having a relationship with somebody, and it's really good if they can pick you up when you're feeling down. But her
Hmm.
research said how we respond to good news is just as important, if not more important. And what I
Hmm.
like about this in leadership coaching, because I'm not coaching couples, but I coach leaders who have relationships with a whole bunch of other people in the workplace.
Yeah.
And it highlights for them, how do I respond when somebody brings me good news? How do we celebrate the good at work? When I'm
Hmm.
in a meeting, what is getting most attention? What works or what's broken? And what is that doing to the morale and to the energy of other people around me? So,
Yeah.
active constructive responding is really important. And just the general positive psychology lens of what is working well is something that a lot of leaders don't spend enough time on. And so, one of the things that I encourage leaders to do is look at, where is the positive? What is working well? How do you encourage and grow yourself and other people through encouraging what is going well, what people are doing right, what you yourself are doing right? Encouraging strengths, for example, encouraging progress, for example, providing process feedback, not just outcome feedback. And so there's this
Exactly.
whole philosophy of positive psychology that we can study and learn from the positive deviance, which again, a lot of leaders are dealing with all the problems in life. Take time to smell the roses. So those are some of the things in positive psychology, all research based, that I found really useful in leadership coaching.
Here's the funny thing. So you were mentioning, always thank you for your amazing answer. Here's the funny thing. Before I started the series of interviews, my recent topic was children and relationships. So we did a video and post about active continuously responding and
So
the
great.
growth mindset. Yeah. So this couldn't have come at a better time. And thank you for showing that tools in positive psychology are not fixated in one field. So I taught something in the context of children relationships. But as you just said, these are things that you can expand to more universal values and things like relationships with a colleague or a friend or whatnot. So it was really good timing. So thank you. Um, and now, obviously, this interview has been very enjoyable and very beneficial for both me and the viewers. And I think today you target a lot of like a very versatile demographic, positive psychologists, leaders, coaches, mentors, and all that. um, which brings us to the critical question of today.
Mhm.
What is one final message that you would like to leave with our viewers, for those who are watching live or will watch the interview later on?
Yeah, I'm kind of tempted to tell everybody to make sure you're getting enough sleep. That's
Which is
that's
good
been
advice, by the way.
it's been life changing for me. Several years ago, I really looked at how I was living my life, and I rejigged it so that I was getting enough sleep.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's my number one, get a lot of sleep. I guess the other thing is just like take the time to appreciate what is going well. You know, just take the time to breathe it in a little bit more and go and recognize yourself or somebody else for something that's going well in your life. It is surprisingly uplifting. It's a small, easy, free thing to do, and it can change so much.
Mhm. That's perfect. And as you said, you should, take a step back, smell the roses, and just appreciate the journey, not just the result. So this was a very good conclusion and ending. Lisa, I really can't thank you enough for today. As I said, you benefited so many people today, and this will be on our YouTube channel and Facebook forever, so people can watch it anytime. For anyone watching and who wants to follow Lisa, you'll find all her contact details in her bio poster. We'll try to reshare it again after the interview. Lisa, it's been a pleasure and a privilege. I know you have a very busy and hectic schedule, but I really appreciate you being here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for reaching out. It has been great to talk with you. Thanks, Kareem.
Same here. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye, Lisa.
Bye bye.